The first one is personal introduction. However, students, remember that this is not going to be scored. But that doesn't mean that you do it shoddily. You must do it really well because that will boost your confidence. And you will also be able to understand the PTE test technology. So you will be able to understand how to listen to the prompt and be able to speak. So this particular question of personal introduction is going to give you an idea on how to proceed ahead. So practice well for this one. Just take a deep breath, stay calm and introduce yourself. This question is not going to be scored, so this will not be added to your overall score. The first question type that is going to be scored is read aloud kind of question. This is testing your speaking skills. The next one is repeat sentence, which is also contributing to your speaking skills. Well, describe image, retell, lecture, short answer questions. These are all related to speaking. So if you notice, there are 5 different question types related to speaking. However, the last 2 are related to writing. So the last 2 are summarize written text and write essay. These 2 question types contribute to your writing skill, and these can be quite challenging. We will discuss these later, and I promise to give you some great tips and strategies to deal with these question types. Well, let's move ahead now. Now students, let me give you a few general tips for this particular section, that is speaking and writing. Now because this test is a completely computer based test, it's very critical for you to understand that your equipment should be working fine, and at the same time your instructions should be read very carefully so that you know exactly what needs to be followed. So let's look at a few general tips here. Well, you first get a chance to test your equipment. So please do bring to the notice of the administrator in case your headset or your microphone is not working properly. Be careful to read the instructions and the indicators on the screen. How does the status bar look like and what are the indicators on the screen? I'm going to let you know in a little while from now. All the recordings will be played only once. So students, you don't have a chance to listen to them again. So listen very carefully and stay focused all the time. You record your response only once. So that means you don't get a chance to re-record your responses. So be very careful. Don't go on to correct yourself very often, or for that matter, don't just keep repeating yourself because you are losing out on your time. Remember that each one of the tasks in the speaking are timed tasks. So for some question types, there will be a short beep or a sound that you will hear, and you need to start recording your response after the beep. So remember that your response will not be recorded if you start recording it before the beep and the microphone does not open up before that. I will let you know in a while that how the status bar looks like and on the screen, and when should you start recording your response, because that's very critical for you to know, otherwise you will not be scored on that answer. Well, point that you need to take care, students, is that if you remain silent for 3 or more seconds, your microphone goes off and you will not be recorded for your response, which means that you will be scored a 0 on that one. So these are very important things that you need to keep in mind, and if you don't take care of all of this, you may not get the maximum score that you are aiming at. So let's move ahead and let's look at what are we going to do in this particular session. So at the end of this session, you will become proficient at tackling the personal introduction, students. At the same time, you will also be able to handle the read aloud question type. As I mentioned earlier, personal introduction is not scored, but you still must do well because that is going to boost your confidence and you'll be able to understand the PTE test technology. However, the question that is scored is read aloud, and you will learn to handle that as well. So let's move ahead. So let's understand how to tackle the personal introduction. Well, students, whenever we introduce ourselves, we generally give our name. At the same time, we also mention our age, educational qualifications, and our plans for the future. So, well, it's as simple as that. You need to string all of these ideas together and come up with your personal introduction. While this answer is not scored, it's important to do well in this one because that will certainly boost your confidence to help you understand how to deal with the questions later, how to speak and record your response. Well, let's look at a few samples here, students. So when we read out this one, so let me just read out one of the samples for you. Hello, my name is Arjun. I'm 22 years old and I come from Mumbai, India. I recently graduated with a bachelor's degree in computer science from the University of Pune. My dream is to pursue a master's degree in artificial intelligence at the University of Melbourne. I'm taking the PTE academic test to meet the English language requirement for my application. Now students, did you notice that while I was reading, I was taking adequate pauses and then speaking out. So you should not speak in a monotone because remember that the PTE tests your pronunciation and your fluency, the stress and the intonation patterns as well while you're speaking. though this question is not scored, try to practice all of that because this will give you a great insight into how to use your intonation patterns and how to modulate your voice. Now let's look at the second sample. Now the second sample says, good morning, I'm Priya from Bangalore, India. I'm 25 years old and currently working as a software developer at Infosys. I completed my bachelor's in engineering in electronics and communication. I plan to study data analytics in Canada to expand my career opportunities, and that's why I'm appearing for the PTE academic exam today. Well, now students, if you notice, my voice goes up sometimes, the pitch falls at the end of a sentence. So these are stress and intonation patterns that you need to use while you are speaking and recording your responses, and that will certainly fetch you a high score. So I will teach you more about all of this, the stress intonation patterns, the voice modulation, and how to alter your intonation patterns according to the various pauses. I'm going to teach you all of that. Let's move ahead now. So well, personal introduction is primarily designed to help you understand the PTE test technology and prepare for the speaking and the listening sections. This will boost your confidence, students, so do it well. Though it does not contribute to the score, it is only meant for familiarization purposes only. Well, there are 25 seconds to prepare for your introduction and 30 seconds to record your response. So you will be given a prompt on the screen, students, so you will be able to see the prompt, prepare for it, and then give your personal introduction in 30 seconds. The response can only be recorded once, so please be sure that you cannot repeat your response. Record it before the progress bar reaches the end. Well, now let's move ahead and let's look at read aloud kind of question, which is actually a scored question, which means that it contributes to your score. So you need to learn all the right strategies to be able to do this question really well. Now let's look at read aloud. Now what exactly is this question type? What does it require you to do? Well, a text appears on the screen, students. So you will see a text on the screen and you need to read the text aloud. Now, do you remember, students, back in school days, the teacher would point out one of the students and mention that, okay, stand up and read aloud for everyone. So I'm sure that is what you have in your memory, and this is what you're required to do here as well. However, now that you're being tested for your read aloud skills, you need to ensure that you're using all your stress, intonation, voice modulation, and pronunciation accurately to be able to come up with a response. Well, the length of the text is up to 60 words, which means that it's not very long. So typically 30 to 40 seconds are provided to you for preparation. So remember that when there is this preparation time of about 40 seconds, students, you must run through the text on the screen. Observe the full stops and the commas, and also ensure that you take adequate pauses wherever you see the commas and the full stops, and then start recording your response once the mic opens up. You will hear a short beep and then you can start speaking to record your response, okay? And there are 6 to 7 questions of this kind. Well, this is not a very difficult question type, and you should be happy there are about 6 to 7 question types of this kind which can add to your score if you are able to understand the intonation patterns that you need to employ here, right? So let's understand the scoring bit, students, because if you don't know how you're scored, you'll not be able to employ all the skills to be able to get a maximum point on this question type. So when a partial credit is awarded based on the attempted task, which means that how many words were correctly read, you're awarded a score based on that. A read aloud question type contributes to your speaking and reading skills. Well, the score is based on content, which means that the maximum score depends on the length of the item prompt, how long the sentence is, or how long the text is that you need to read. Apart from that, it is also judged on the basis of fluency and pronunciation, and you are given a score on a range of 0 to 5. Now, what exactly is this fluency, students? Well, fluency is your ability to go on speaking or reading without the unnatural hesitation and choppiness in your tone, which means that you need to display a natural rate of speech, neither too fast nor too slow. So be very careful about that. Now, what is pronunciation? Well, pronunciation means that all your sounds are accurate, which means that you should sound like a native speaker or a natural speaker or a regular speaker of English language. So what exactly is fluency, students? Well, fluency is your ability to go on speaking without the unnatural hesitation or the choppiness in your tone. So which means that your rate of speech should be very natural. It should be neither too fast nor too slow. What exactly is pronunciation? Well, it's not just the individual sounds that you take up or the individual words that you pronounce. It also includes the stress intonation patterns and the voice modulation. So how are we going to do that? Well, I'm going to let you know some great strategies and tips on how to include stress intonation patterns and voice modulation while you read aloud. Let's move ahead. So now that you know about the scoring, let's begin with read aloud question. But even before that, I would like to build your skills in the area of pronunciation. You know why pronunciation is critical? Because primarily it is the AI that is judging you and rating you and giving you a score in this question. So you certainly need to pronounce each word correctly. And what happens if you don't pronounce it correctly? Well, the AI will not be able to understand and you lose your point for that particular word. So let's work on the pronunciation. And why tongue twisters? Well, you can see on the screen that we have tongue twisters here to improve your pronunciation. Well, tongue twisters, what are they? They are basically a phrase or a sentence that is hard to speak, primarily because of the alliteration or the sequence of nearly similar sounds. Well, why learn tongue twisters? Well, it's primarily because they help you improve your pronunciation for the various consonants and vowels. And you are able to enunciate each word carefully and correctly if you are able to build your skills in this area. So now let's look at one of the examples out here. A Persian person purchased a perfect purple purse on purpose. Now what exactly are we repeating? We are repeating the sound P time and again. So the consonant P is repeated here and it helps us to understand the pronunciation of this consonant. We're able to pronounce each word clearly and correctly, and that's how we can get a maximum score when it comes to the pronunciation bit. So isn't that a real fun way to learn pronunciation? Well, that certainly is. But
A Persian
are you finding it tricky?
person purchased a
Well,
perfect
that's why
purple
they're called
purse on
tongue twisters,
purpose.
because they can be tricky even for the native speakers. But don't worry, just take a deep breath, slow down, and repeat. So
Persian
do that with me. Now let's take up a few
person
tongue twisters
purchased
to
a
improve the pronunciation of it.
perfect
This is one
purple
pediatrician which I remember back from my school days, but let's look at a few more. So one of them from B
purse
alphabet
on
is
purpose.
a big black bug bit a big black dog on his big
Big
black nose.
black bug
Now
bit a big
remember to make
black
sure
dog
that you
on
pronounce
his
the sound
big
B
black
correctly.
nose.
That is what we are learning here. So we are pronouncing each word clearly and aptly, which helps the computer or the AI to understand each and every word and also learn how to pronounce it correctly. Well, let's look at the next one, students. Which is the next one? Are you trying that with me? Well, keep trying because these can be tricky, but they certainly help you improve your pronunciation to a great extent. They are a fun way, but they are quite
Vivacious
impactful.
vacuum
So letter
violets.
V, let's take up
Very
that one.
vivid
Vivacious
vehicle.
vacuum toilets, very vivid vehicle. That was easy, wasn't that? Well, I found it easy. Let's look at the next one, B and V together. Many people tend to find the pronunciation of B and V quite tricky. At times, I've heard people pronouncing the letter B as V, and in other cases, I've heard people even pronounce the letter V as B. So let's look at the correct pronunciation. Betty loves the velvet vest best. So
Betty loves the velvet
pronunciation of B and V
vest
together.
best.
Well, there are more such tongue twisters. Keep practicing, students, because they can be quite impactful when it comes to your pronunciation. And
Betty
you
loves
don't
the
have to
velvet
really feel the
vest
stress.
best.
Just take a deep breath, as I said. Calm
Big
down,
black bug bit
go
a
slow,
big black
and then
dog
try to
on his
pick up
big
the
black
pronunciation,
nose.
and then later on pick up speed and see if you can pronounce it correctly even while you're speaking fast. Right? However, the pronunciation should not be compromised even when you're speaking fast. Let's move ahead. Okay, students, so let's look at some of the strategies to help you deal with this question effectively. So first and foremost, you need to be loud and clear and also be fluent. So don't bring out that choppiness in your tone. Be very clear and loud enough for your sound to be or voice to be recorded, because you know that the AI is judging you. So unnecessary pauses. So you must read the text aloud, be recorded, and in this case, you get a 0 on this response. So don't keep silent, just keep reading. So let's move ahead and let's take up a few examples to understand how to attempt this task. So now that we have looked at the strategies, I'm going to take up an example to help you understand how to do this question. So this is how your question looks like. It says that look at the text below. In 40 seconds, you must read the text aloud as naturally and clearly as possible. So even they are advising you to be as natural and clear as possible. So make sure that you pronounce your words clearly and aptly. You have 40 seconds to read aloud. So that means there is time to prepare for this response. And when you're preparing for this response, it's crucial that you run through the text and observe the full stops and the commas. That will help you to understand where to take meaningful pauses. So use the punctuation as your guide, students. That's going to help you to understand where to raise your intonation patterns and where your intonation patterns should fall, and where to take pauses. Right, let's quickly observe this one. Well, I'm going to quickly highlight the pauses that we need to take, where we need to take the pauses. So look carefully at the screen, students. I'm highlighting the commas and the full stops. That's going to guide me on how to use, how to read aloud these sentences and get my maximum score. Well, I see some commas and full stops here, and I'm highlighting each one of them. Look at this. Well, we have all the commas and the full stops highlighted. Now I know that in these places I need to take some meaningful pauses. Now, what about the intonation patterns? I told you that you need to raise your voice or lower down your voice in certain places. Where exactly do we raise our voice, or where exactly we lower it down? Let's understand that as well. Now, a very important tip here, students, note it down if you can't remember, that the moment we start a sentence, we must raise the intonation patterns. And the moment we enter a sentence, we must lower down our intonation patterns. So, just keep that in mind. You start a sentence with a high pitch, and you lower down your pitch the moment you end it. At the same time, your pitch falls down the moment you see a comma. Right, so let me just read that, those sentences, keeping these things in mind. So notice the way I am using my intonation patterns, and I'm pronouncing each word clearly. And look at the pauses that I'm taking everywhere there is a comma, or a full stop for that matter. So trade involves the transfer of goods and services from one person or entity to another, often in exchange for money. Economists refer to a system or network that allows trade as a market. An early form of trade, barter, saw the direct exchange of goods and services for other goods and services, trading things without the use of money. Now, did you see that I took meaningful pauses wherever I had highlighted the full stops and the commas, and that's precisely what you need to do in order to get maximum score as far as your fluency and pronunciation is concerned. And what about content? Well, I did not replace any word from the transcript. I did not even miss out any word from the transcript, which means that I read it out the way it was. So as far as content goes, even then I can score a maximum 1 if I read it correctly. Right, so did you understand, students, how to attempt this question? Wasn't that really easy? It will be easy if you follow these patterns and these tips that I have shared with you. Okay, students, let's also have a look at how your screen looks like, and when you need to start recording your response. So it's critical to understand that when the current status shows as beginning in 5 seconds, as you can see on the screen here, it means that it is your preparation time that is going on, which means you should not start reading aloud. You're not recording your response. It's only when the mic opens up you must record your response, and the status will change to recording. At that point of time, you can see that the progress bar has turned blue and it is moving ahead. And when the time is up, the status will change to completed, and that's when the progress bar reaches the extreme right end. And that's when the mic goes off and the recording stops. So remember that you will only be able to record once, and you cannot record the moment the status shows as completed. And you have 40 seconds to read aloud. Well, one more time, I'm going to show you example, and I'm going to and you get a 0 on that score. Well, let's take up another question. You must read the step, emphasize how to use your intonation patterns. So I'm just showing you one more time here how to do this question, and I'm highlighting the commas and the full stops. Erosion is a gradual process that occurs when the impact of water or wind detaches and removes soil particles, causing soil to deteriorate. Soil deterioration and low water quality due to erosion and surface runoff have become severe problems worldwide. Did you notice, students, I altered my intonation patterns the moment I saw a full stop, and my intonation patterns fell down. But when I started a sentence, the intonation patterns were high. That means I raised my voice. That is precisely what you need to do. And when I noticed a few specific words like soil erosion, I looked at soil deterioration and low water quality. So these were specific terms that were carrying specific meaning. So I emphasized on them, stressed on them, and that is precisely what is required when you are doing this. However, if you read like this, soil erosion is a gradual process that occurs when the impact of water or wind detaches and removes the soil particles. Well, that is called a monotone. Do not speak in a monotone, because that will not fetch you high points. Remember, you have to speak clearly and loudly, use your stress patterns, and raise and lower down your pitch. That's something very important. Those are critical tips for you in order to do when time is running out and you need to complete your recording your response before the progress bar reaches the extreme right end, which means that the mic will go off the moment the progress bar has completely turned blue. So be very careful, students. You need to keep these tips in mind, and these are some of the smart tips that will help you address this question. To remember, number one, Whenever you have time before recording the response, that is 40 seconds, at that time you must skip through the text. That is going to help you to be aware of the words that are included so that you can pronounce them correctly. At the same time, observe the commas and the full stops. That punctuation is going to help you to understand where to take meaningful pauses. At the same time, remember the very important tip that your intonation patterns should be altered. So when you begin the sentence, your voice should be high, that means your pitch should be high. When you end the sentence, your pitch should fall down. So remember that, students. Those are some very, very important tips that I'm sharing with you to help you to score maximum on this task. Now, another important thing, don't forget to practice your tongue twisters. Well, these are going to help you to improve your pronunciation for various vowels and consonants. And it's critical for you to pronounce each word correctly. As I mentioned earlier also, that the AI is judging you and scoring on this question. So certainly your pronunciation will be impacted if you don't pronounce the words correctly. So keep practicing, keep learning and practicing, and only then you will become proficient at this one. There are 6 to 7 question types of this kind, and if you ace this question up, you will be able to score a maximum on this one. Well, till then, bye-bye. Welcome back, students, and I hope you remember me.